Oh yeah, record.
We are recording.
We are recording. Welcome, everybody. Hello to all of you who are jumping in here. We're going to wait 1 minute before we start for all of you guys to get in, sit down, kick up your feet, and get ready for Ask the Trainer Live here. So we will just get started in just a moment here. For those of you that are on the call for the first time, welcome. And I just want to give you a quick little tip, which is that this app that you're using, RingCentral Meetings, is the same exact thing as Zoom. So if you've used Zoom over the past month or two, it should be pretty easy for you to get familiar with. The chat feature down at the bottom is accessible through the participants button if you're on a mobile device. And if you're on a desktop, then you got easy access to the chat button, and you can hammer us with all sorts of questions and comments and all sorts of good stuff. Since it looks like we got most of the people on the call here, we're going to just go ahead and dive right into things here. Again, thank you all for joining us here, and we are going to make this Ask Trainer call a little bit better than the one that we had last week. So let's just go ahead and start off. I want to make a quick introduction here to the entire DogiZone team who is on the call with me here. Most of you know everybody, but I want to make sure that we don't miss anyone. So Jessica is our co-host here this evening. So Jessica, if you can wave at everybody and say hello.
Hey, everybody. Good evening.
We also have Candace as our scribe, Karen as our moderator, Milton as our timekeeper. And we have George and Terrence as our two trainers here this evening that'll be primarily the ones answering questions unless, you know, Jessica and I can't help ourselves. You guys know how that goes if you've been on the call before. But what we would love for you all to do is to make sure you utilize that chat feature as we go through things. It makes it a lot more fun for us and for everybody else on the call. So real quickly, I want you to tell us what you did with your dog to exercise them today. How did you exercise your dog today? Throw it into the chat bar and realize you might be really helping out somebody else by doing this right now, because we know that a lot of the questions that are coming up are related to dogs not getting enough exercise because some of you are watching too much Netflix. So that being said, go ahead and let's see what we got here. Swimming. Awesome. That's great. Long walks, big walks. All right. Excellent. Played fetch. Lots of great stuff there. So excellent. And keep those coming in here. Why don't we have our two trainers just give a quick introduction real quick. We'll go ahead and start off with George. Why don't you give us a quick introduction real fast?
Hi, George Cockrell here, one of the senior trainers with DogiZone. Been with the company since the beginning of it, and I always look forward to these calls so I can help everybody out.
Excellent, excellent. And Terrence?
For, about a year and say 7 months now. Former police K-9 trainer, been training for 32 years, law enforcement and civilian, and just happy to be here and answer your questions today.
Awesome. And one of the things that I had mentioned on our last call was that we ultimately are doing these calls not just to entertain you all. Really, that's the secondary reason. But more or less because we want to help you all. We want to make sure that all of you are continuing to make progress with your dogs, or hopefully not go too far backwards while you're not getting the ongoing coaching and support from us. And so we want you to come into the phone call with the mindset of doing something different afterwards, right? You know, somebody said knowledge is power. I think that doesn't make any sense at all. Applied knowledge is power, which means that if you don't take what we're teaching you and apply it, then it's just entertainment and it's kind of a waste of time. It's not really getting the outcome and result that everybody really wants by being on these phone calls. So if you're not driving, which I see somebody's driving, Jay, we obviously want you to be safe, so don't do this. But if you're sitting down, we'd love for you to get a piece of paper and draw 2 lines on it so you've got it divided into 3 sections. you're going to put something at the top of each section. The first section, you're going to write start doing. The section number 2, you're going to put stop doing. And section number 3, you're going to write keep doing. And as we go through the call, if you hear something that you need to start, stop, or keep doing with your dog, I want you to write it down on there. This way, as soon as you get off your own call, you have a sheet of action items that you can continue to focus on over the next week. Some of you are going to do this. Some of you are going to go, I'm not going to do that. It's not that important. I promise you, ones that do will achieve better results. So I'm going to encourage you all to do that. But without further ado, I think we need to go ahead and dive into some questions here. So let's go ahead and get us started off with our first question. So building off of last week, can you go over how to have your pup politely ask for attention? And I might just add into this question, not only ask for attention, but maybe ask for food, ask to go out of a doorway, ask for anything that they may want. How is it, George, that we would teach a dog to do this?
Well, one thing I'm going to do is put something the dog ultimately wants, like a treat or a toy. I'm going to have that present so the dog knows I have it. And then what I like to do is free shape the behavior, and that is wait for a few moments, not putting in a lot of input into the dog. And when they finally sit, I give that a big, enthusiastic, good, and give them that treat. And I just practice that. When they walk up to me, I don't really respond to them till they offer me that little sit. And then I mark it. The secret there is marking that behavior, good, and then give them a treat. And ultimately, you can build that whole situation out to any, like they want to go out the door, you kind of wait them out, wait till they sit. Boom, that opens the door. They want their food, boom, they sit, they get their food. So that's how I kind of go with it. I free shape it. I don't put a lot of physical input to it at first. I just let the dog figure it out, and they usually do.
Excellent. Terrence.
Yes, great answer, George. I would do that as well, and also I would actually just having your dog sit away from the door first, kind of work him back away from wherever it is you're having a distraction at. Start him back there first, and like George said, give him a treat, have a toy ready for him, and then slowly approach that location. And once you approach that location, everything is positive. The rules are in place. Make it fun, make it a game. And kind of test them a little bit. The biggest thing is reward them, but work away from the area of distraction or where you're having problems from first, and then go up to that area.
Excellent. I think the important thing to just add here is that ultimately the dog is doing what we want to do. We want to reward them by giving them the attention or opening the door, and we want that attention or the opening of the door to stop if they discontinue the sitting behavior. Daniela had also asked, what if they start barking and whining while they're sitting? And ultimately for that, you just need to completely ignore it. You will have to wait that behavior out. We're going to go ahead and dive into the next question here. Could you provide a stepwise training process to train your dog to tolerate getting their nails cut? She is 5 years old. This is from Mildred with Alexi, or Alexi with Mildred. Who knows? I don't know which way it goes. No, I'm just kidding. I do. I'm just having fun. But George, what would you suggest for this 5-year-old dog that doesn't like her nails trimmed?
Well, I'm guessing the dog hasn't liked having its nails trimmed 4 or 5 years. So that's a lot of practice in protestation. One of the things I've done for years is I will spread out peanut butter, cheese whiz, or something really flat on a plate or something like that. Like spread it out like cake frosting. Not too thick, of course. And let the dog kind of start working on that. And then I'll kind of sneak in there. And first I'll play with their feet. And then I'll add touching their feet with the clippers. And then ultimately I'll reach in there and clip 1 or 2 nails. You don't have to do all the nails in one sitting. Sometimes that's a little much for the dog, especially one learning. So I find distracting them with something they just got to have works really well. But understand, this dog sounds like it has 5 years of, I don't like this. So it might take a little bit of patience to get that going. So, but, that's just it. they do what works for them. So if they protest and you stop, then you got a problem.
Excellent. Terrence.
I would also try a grinder, the little nail. It almost looks like a Dremel, and work your dog's nails with that. However, don't just go right in and start trimming the nails with the Dremel, but just have it on. Have it on, have them by you, have it on the floor, have it near. First of all, your dog has to get used to, someone just playing with her feet, touching her feet. So you may have to take a couple steps backwards first. But have the Dremel near her, he or she. Give her a treat, good. Get it closer to her, then maybe touch one nail. Then she does pretty good, and praise her. Mark that behavior. Good. Dremel, good. And end it. And then come back. Before you know it, I've had it where it took me at least 3 attempts to get all the nails done. But after that, it was all she wrote. I was able to get all nails done. But a slow introduction.
Excellent. Yeah, nail trimming can be, I'll just be really transparent. We have a lot of people that come to DogiZone and want us to train their dogs to accept nail trimming. And it's probably one of the most challenging things that we have to deal with there, because a lot of the dogs, their reaction is based on a pain reaction. They've had their quick clipped in multiple, situations, and they have a very painful association with it, which can put the dog into a state of being aggressive or whatever the case may be. So, that being said, sometimes it is better off to leave it to a professional, and sometimes we would even tell you sometimes leave it to a vet, because sometimes you can create more problem than actually helping the dog move forward if you're not making progress. So that's something that we could get definitely in more depth with you on one-on-one. If it's something that you think would be helpful, just let us know and we'll arrange that for you. Our third question: Pixie has lots of energy and often will enter this state of me and nudges next and then I can't get her to snap out of it with a treat. However, I don't want to reinforce it. So we've got a dog that's getting into a very over-adrenalized state, and it doesn't sound like is able to settle down when mom needs her to. What do you think, George?
Well, I think a lot of times, more than not, that's been trained unintentionally. Whenever that dog comes up and elicits that attention from you, and you respond to it, that's reinforcing it. And then if you don't respond to it, they tend to escalate ultimately where you respond to it. And they'll keep escalating that and getting, higher and higher in that range until they finally figure out it doesn't work anymore. So one of the things I'm going to do is, assuming the dog's not harming me in some way, biting or, jumping up and scratching me and things like that, I'm going to blow that dog off, and I'm going to wait, just like we talked about earlier. Wait for that say polite. And then as soon as that dog calms down and gives me that calm posture, I'm going to mark that and praise the heck out of it. And over time, the dog will figure it out. So basically, a high level of adrenaline turns you off, turns off the activity, and calm brings the activity in. The more escalated you become trying to stop it, throwing treats at them, telling them no, jumping up and down, pushing them off, kneeing them, all that stuff, the worse that's going to get. So I'm going to be super calm. If I have to control the dog, I'm going to put the dog on a leash collar to physically prevent the dog from doing any damage to me or anything else, including themselves. Dogs won't burn fuel on stuff that doesn't work for them, so you have to just show the dog that doesn't work anymore.
I think the key there is figuring out what it is that they perceive as the reward, right?
Right. There's something there.
Yep. Awesome. Terrence.
Yes, totally agree with what George said. Just make sure you have a leash on the dog. Mark the behavior that you want. Ignore the behavior that you don't want, or you can even put a command with the behavior you don't want. But think about your energy. Think about the energy you're putting back out to the dog. And if all else fails, find out where this is happening. Is it just happening in one area, or is it happening by the door? Is it happening when you go
Excellent. And I'll just mention it here for those of you that didn't see it in the chat bar, but Jessica mentioned using sit on the dog exercise. And yeah, you've got to, when you have this type of situation going on, you have to look at, okay, what is it that you as the owner are doing to deal with that situation? How is the dog being managed? Are you containing them? At that point, you're not. Are you restraining them? At that point, you're not. And are you training them? Probably not, because they're not doing the right thing. So they're maybe being trained to learn the wrong thing. So getting that restraint in there, getting that dog on a leash, sitting on the dog exercise could be a great way to help that dog learn to relax when they get over adrenalized. Our pup seems to be teething again at 9 months and doesn't seem to listen to commands nor distracted with toys when he gets into that mode. Not sure if he's bored with seeing us people or dogs, or it's something common at this age. So, George.
Well, there can be a few things causing that. Some stress. It might be a stress reliever for the dog, sort of like a whoopee. Depends on what they're chewing on. Boredom is your enemy. Mental fatigue is really your friend. Getting that dog more mentally challenged instead of just sitting there mindlessly chewing on something. I'm a big fan of food puzzles like the Kong Wobbler, things like that. Even just, I had a client the other day, I had them throw a handful of the dog's treats in its toy box and had them shake it around so the treats all went all wherever in the toy box. And so the dog spent better part of 90 minutes pulling each toy out there, trying to get down to that payoff. But mental stuff like that, you can get real creative with what it is. But hey, just telling them to sit all the time in all their place, that's kind of boring. So I try to get them involved mentally with stuff. If it's anxiety, you got to understand right now the change in the world, our lifestyles and everything's dramatically changed. That's going to bring up some level of anxiety. A lot of times dog will start gnawing on something to self-soothe. So getting that dog out for a walk when he's doing that, a nice, energetic, mindful walk might do a world of good too. It's not necessarily normal at 9 months to go back into teething. He's not teething. His teeth are all in. But also don't rule out some medical issue. Maybe he's got a sore in his mouth or something. I'd really look over his teeth, make sure that was okay also.
Excellent. Terrence?
Take the food and, like George said, make it a puzzle, make it a game. Try to go and find some little grass and actually take his meal and kind of toss it out in the grass and have him look for it. Use his toys and put it out there as well, but then he'll have to search between his toys and his food. The biggest thing, and you'll hear me say this repetitively, is just reward your dog and mark the behavior. Mark the behavior. That will help a whole lot. When your dog has to use its nose, move its body, and think, that wears them out.
Awesome. Great stuff going on in the chat bar there. So if you haven't taken a look at that, definitely check that out there. Good stuff. Next question we have: what suggestions do you have that mentally challenge dogs? Ideas to wear their heads out from boredom they are experiencing? Well, this is a great question and kind of goes a little bit to what's going on in the chat bar here. But George, could you maybe share some ideas here?
Yeah, I just mentioned it in the previous answer. Puzzle the dog. Let the dog start solving problems. Too often we put too much input. Let the dog solve the issues. Again, I like hiding food. Let the dog figure it out, dig it out, things like that. Put it under a blanket. Let them solve the problem. Putting food in an empty 2-liter soda bottle, it works. Making the dog concentrate when you go out for walks on you, like don't just walk, stop, make them do some commands, then walk some more. Again, boredom is your enemy on this. And if you don't find your dog some things to do, they are going to find something to do, and you are rarely going to like everything they come up with. So I'm a big fan of teaching tricks. I'm happy to teach tricks. That's kind of one of my favorite things to do. Teaching the dogs anything new. Start teaching them in Spanish. I mean, just get that dog's brain working.
Excellent. And Terrence, I'm going to influence your answer a little bit if it's okay. You can obviously answer however you would like, but maybe you could also bring into your answer some like scent work type of things that people might be able to do at home, since you have a lot of experience there.
Okay, great. I was talking about earlier in the previous question about having your dog find its food in the grass. That actually leads to scent work. So you can take the dog's food, his toy, and place it somewhere. And you can actually give it a command like search or find on cue. Have your dog, make it real simple at first. Have someone else hold the dog if you have a good reliable stay or a good reliable sit or down. Have someone else hold the dog as well, and let them see where you're placing it, and have them go find it. Let them see where you're placing it in the beginning. Then from that point on, hide it a little bit. Not too much, but just make them think just a little bit. And then as they get more successful with that, like, oh, wow, this is fun. So not only do they get to move and think and find something, but they get the reward. And then once they get it, if it's their toy, engage with them with the activity once they find it. But again, you can you can put the food out, put the food under a couch or something, and have them go look for their food. But make sure you have them see you place it there. Then the next time, act like you're placing it there and place it somewhere else. And they see you go to both places. So it's not at the first one, then it goes to the second one, and then you say, God, you mark that behavior.
And then don't forget where you hid the dog's food at for the pieces that they don't get, because they'll find it 3 or 4 weeks later and they'll be digging to try to get under your couch. And you'll be wondering what's going on there. But that's awesome. All right. And we have our 6th question here. How can I get my dog to stop going underneath the crate mat and chewing on it? George.
Take the mat out of there is how I do it. That's a common problem. And if the dog is tearing that stuff up, one, they're practicing tearing stuff up. The more important thing is if they're ingesting any of it, could be a major problem in their life and yours. So if I have a dog that's continually tearing up the fancy little beds people buy and put them in the crates, I just let them sleep on the plastic liner. And I've seen cases where that plastic liner isn't safe either. The thing is most of the time when the dog's in the crate, people aren't watching, so they're not going to step in there and kind of offer some level of correction when they're doing it. It's done while you're taking a nap or while you're at work, so there's not much you can do there. So I remove the bone of contention, if you will. And then later I teach place with the mat and make that their bed a lot, like outside the crate where they're starting to dig it and it's their hangout spot. And then I will put it back into the crate and see how they do.
Excellent. Terrence.
That's a great answer. I really don't have much to add to it. I mean, I went through that with my own dogs, and I tried to give them a nice pillow or a nice bed, and they bit at it. Had a mat for it, they bit at that as well. So I took the mat out. I just totally took away the problem and had them on the nice plastic crate on there, and that's what they live on now, unless they are just out hanging out or staying out in the house without anything. But they get no mats. They don't get pillows. They don't get anything cushy, but they get the rug. So, but the thing is, you have to monitor them. And once you monitor them and you catch them in the act, that also helps.
Excellent. Just add a couple suggestions in here. The beds that we use at DogiZone are made by a company called Kuranda. That's spelled with a K, and somebody will throw it into the chat bar here. Kuranda beds are extremely durable. You can get them with an aluminum frame. They're orthopedic. They look more like a cot, and they have 4 legs. The 4 legs can be removed, and they work most crate sizes. Those are virtually chew-proof. We have seen dogs scratch through the fabric after excessive attempts. We've also, I've used the canine ballistics dog beds. Those are not quite as durable. My lab destroyed one in about 24 hours. So that is not the most durable. But another option that's also worked well for me, which is a little bit outside the box option, is a horse stall pad, which are very, very thick, heavy rubber. And those can be cut to size to fit into the bottom of a crate to at least give them a little bit softer surface to lay down on. And since they're heavy, sometimes they're a little bit harder for the dog to lift up and chew on. But no guarantees there, because we certainly have some Houdini dogs out there. Next question we have: my dog hates the leash. Looks like a wild zoo animal.
Aha.
Tips for training to not be afraid of the leash. So we have a dog that looks like a wild zoo animal on the leash. I love it. That's got to be quite the show to see. I think we're going to have to start doing video submissions of the crazy things that you all are dealing with at home. If you think that that's a good idea, just go ahead and write into the chat bar. We love the idea of video submissions. And if we got enough people, then yeah, maybe we'll have you guys submit some videos next week, and we'll get some good laughs there. Yeah, I'm seeing lots of love there. Okay, cool. It sounds like we're doing it, team. At this point, I don't think there's any turning back. I just ripped the Band-Aid off. So sorry, not sorry. George, tell us, what can Melissa do?
That dog would be living practically 24/7 in a leash around the house, daytime, nighttime, and Saturday too. After saying that, please be careful that the dog isn't put in a position where they can get stuck on something. But that dog, that would be part of their clothes. Too often we put the dog on a leash once in a while when we're going for a walk or something. Of course, they go out there and they get adrenalized, and you're tugging on them, or they're not comfortable, or they never got acclimated to the leash, and then you got a problem. So they associate the leash with a problem. So I'm serious. That dog, I would have put that leash on that dog, little 6-footer, even a 4-footer around the house, a cloth, or I wouldn't do leather. Dogs like to chew the leather, but good nylon or something, and let that dog just use it. It's part of every day. So you're either just sometimes holding it, sometimes not. I'm going to pick it up once in a while. When he's doing well with it, when he calms down with the leash on, I'm going to, as Terrence and I are always saying, mark that behavior, give them a treat when they calm and with that thing. First few days you might struggle, but I'll bet you it gets better.
Excellent. Terrence.
Yes, great. And what George is talking about is called a dragline. You want to have the dog like about 4 or 5 feet, something that it's not going to get tangled up on. I would add another step in there, where though every time you pick up the leash, when the dog comes near you, give them a treat without even putting the leash on. Just give them a treat. Good. Pick up the leash, even go right next to them. Click it. Click the leash. Good. Then put the leash on. Click it. Good. Give them a treat. Every time you put that leash on them and you give them a treat and you mark their behavior, when they start seeing that leash, they're going to actually come to you and probably give you a behavior like sit or down. When my dogs see me pick up a leash, they come running to me and they go to a sit. But that's because every time before I had a leash, I show it to them and give them a treat and say, good, and I'll make it a big deal about it. The other point, like George said, is, get your drag line, let them drag it around. Correct the unwanted behavior and praise the wanted behavior.
Wonderful. All right, great. We're making great time here, and there was a question that came into me a moment ago that I wanted to go ahead and address here real quick, and this is from Doug. It just says, is it bad or detrimental to do structured walks for more than 30 minutes to an hour? Is there such thing as overtraining the dog in a day? Also, when we do heel walking, usually on the left side, what command should we use if we want the dog on the right side? George, do you want to just answer that real quick?
Yeah, you can overtrain a dog if you take them past their mental saturation point, basically where they stop learning and you're just existing. I'm a bigger fan of shorter periods of time of intense mental activity, training, etc. An hour-long walk, if it's structured, is probably going to burn your dog out mentally. By the end of that walk, I'm guessing you're going to probably start seeing some level of protestation and, where they're kind of done. A better thing to do if you insist on walking for a whole hour, I would probably encourage you to do 25 steps, stop and do some obedience. Do 25 steps, do some obedience. That way the dog gets you can stretch that out any way you want, but I think the dog would probably enjoy that a little more, and you're still keeping that mental activity where it needs to be. What was the second part of that question about it? There was a part two.
What command to use when walking the dog on the right side?
Anything you want that isn't heel. I use side. I also can have my dogs walk between my legs as I walk, and we call that guard. So you can pick a word, whatever suits you, say right side or whatever. As long as you define what the dog's doing while he's doing it, you define that, mark it, they're going to put that together. You can talk to them in Chinese, it's just pick it, but be consistent and reward it every time, and only reward that word when the position is correct.
Excellent. Terrence, you want to add anything to that?
George kind of hit it on the head. Side, right? Pick a number. 2. Dog automatically goes to the right side. Again, you only say 2 when that dog is on that right side. And as far as the walk is concerned, you can go an hour, hour and a half, but don't train that whole hour and a half. Go into it, let's go. Casually walk. Just monitor what he's doing. Just as long as he's walking in your direction, praise him. Let him enjoy that walk. Walk is the most important thing you can do to bond with your dog. So let him have that. But pick a point. Pick a point where you're just doing the structured walk. Then relax from that, free, and let him go. Let him go into a let's go. Your dog will appreciate you so much because they will look forward to that and they will enjoy that walk. So there is saturation. Don't overdo it. Don't overdo it. Do it 10, 15 minutes. After that, let them be a dog, because before you know it, the more consistently you walk that way, your dog is going to want to keep up with you anyway.
Awesome. All right. And we're going to dive into number 8 here, recall. How to get my 2-year-old Shih Tzu to come when called, especially when she is in the yard and has to come in. George.
Yeah, we get this question so often. Put a leash on the dog, a longer leash, a length of rope. A Shih Tzu is not that big, so you could probably just use clothesline or some other light line. Call the dog and then show them the only right answer is to move towards you. Of course, rewarding it, marking it, but don't let the dog just kind of wander and you're out there chasing the dog yelling, come. Put a leash on, say come. When the dog looks at you, mark that. Try to entice the dog in, but have that rope to guide that dog until you're getting it. And then you can drop the rope and see how the dog does. If you have to pick up the rope, then pick up the rope. You got to create habit, and dogs learn by repetition, and that's the only way that is reliable to get that done. No matter what tool you're using, the rope is the important part.
Excellent. Terrence.
Yes, I would start out with a 6-foot line. Again, you always hear me say this probably on every call that we have. Mean what you say what you mean. When you are wasting your commands, your dog will learn to ignore you. The biggest thing with common, the hugest mistake I see is that people are not making it fun when their dog does come back to them. They actually praise them once they're right in front of them, opposed to as the dog is in the action and the movement of coming. When you throw that dog a party and he realizes, is all that for me? They're like, oh, wow, I'm going to come back again. But you keep it on leash. You keep it on leash in the beginning, 6 foot, 10 foot, 15, 20, 25. Make it consistent. And before you know it, your dog is going to get it. They're going to get it. But again, praise them. And don't just say, good boy. Good boy. Let them know that they are good. They are the biggest thing ever.
Just like that. Just like that. You got to bring the energy. You got to bring the energy. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of reasons why dogs don't come when they're called, but I think a lot of it is our poor process of chasing the dog or doing certain things that are causing the dog to not come back to us. So there's a lot to think about with that. Our next question, advice. Hetty doesn't listen to me anymore. She's in high school, and since we're on lockdown, she thinks she's on vacation. Doesn't have to behave. So, George, we have a dog that's taking this pandemic as vacation. Unacceptable. Totally unacceptable. What are we going to do?
Absolutely unacceptable. Bad Hetty, no biscuit. Let me tell you what's going on there if you want the truth. Enforcement sounds like it's taking a vacation too. So somewhere along the way, Hetty has figured out that you're probably not as likely to enforce the command, nor as likely to be practicing at the level that we would have you practicing at, where we're nagging you. So if you really take a look at that, that's usually what's causing that issue. The dog's knowledge is still there, but the dog has figured out that maybe she doesn't have to do it so much. But get back on that enforcement, get back on those repetitions. You know what to do. You're in high school. Practice those basics that we taught you. That's what you do until the dog realizes, okay, lunchtime is over, recess is done. But that's usually what happens is our enforcement level goes down and problems start to rise.
I like what you said about going back to the basics. Somebody told me one time that advanced skills are basics that you've mastered. And I think that's so true. And so many of us want to progress, but sometimes we need to spend more time on those basics. Terrence, what else do you think she should do to get things back on track?
I would up my game, as George said, be more conscious of what's going on. But I will also go outside of my home and do it for 5 minutes. When you do it for 5 minutes, pick up your energy, pick up your pace, and then end it. Then come back the next day and do it again. Add just a little bit more time to it. But again, the energy that you put into it is going to play a key role. Make your corrections sharp and precise, and make your praises big for when she actually does it. Then she'll realize, oh, okay, I like this, but I need to listen. So again, just try that also, outside of your home, not in your backyard, not on the side of your yard. Go a couple blocks up the street and do it. Or put her in a car and go to a park, 5-10 minutes. But have some energy along with it.
Excellent. So last week we spoke a little bit about this. I don't know if I referred to it or not, but something that we do, especially when we're, have dogs in for training camp, is we put them on what's called the hardcore routine. And the hardcore routine involves containing your dog, whether that be in a crate or wherever it is that you're able to contain them safely, for 2 hours, and then bringing them out for 5 minutes of training. Crate them for 2 hours, bring them back out for 5 minutes of training, and do that essentially every day for the course of a week. And then the following week, increase it to 10 minutes out per time. By doing this, you're going to condition the dog that whenever it is that they come out with you, there's something specific that they should be doing, and that's working for you. One of the reasons why people are so impressed when they see a police dog or a trainer's dog, they say, wow, look how well trained that dog is. Well, what most people don't realize is that those dogs are brought out, they're trained for 5, maybe 25 minutes max, and then they go back into rest period, not somewhere where they're distracted at the window, barking at other people, and going back to acting foolish. So they've learned that when they are out of their area of containment, there's one thing that they do. That's being obedient. That's being focused on the owner. That's not being on an autopilot. That's not tearing through the house and blowing you off and barking at the window. It's one thing. They just know, focus on dad or focus on mom. And what most of you are unwilling to do. And not all of you, some of you are willing to do it, but a lot of you, because you're not professional dog trainers, won't be willing to do this. But you've got to ultimately take a big step back. You got to take the emotion out of the dog training to really get to the point where they're going to be as successful as you want. You've got to raise the bar. If you have your bar set here, then when you get busy, things go back to zero. You got to get your bar way up here so that when you drop the ball because you're not focused and you're busy or whatever happens, your dog drops down to here and they're still pretty good. So that's what I wanted to add on to that. We're on to our last question here, which we had a lot of questions around this topic. So George and Terrence, you guys probably may take a little extra time on this one, but we will potentially have some extra time left over. So what I'd like for you to do is, if you've got a question that's pressing that you want to ask, go ahead and throw it into the chat bar. I can't promise that we're going to get to it. We'll do our best. I know when I say that, we'll get 20 questions, of course. But I also want all of you to take a moment and look at that sheet that we started, hopefully at the beginning of the phone call, with what you're going to start doing, stop doing, and keep doing. If you haven't started that sheet, get the sheet out, 3 columns, 1 for start, 1 for stop, and 1 for keep, and you should have some stuff written in there. Hopefully you've been picking some stuff up as we've been going through the call. I am going to ask you to share some of the things that you're going to start, stop, or keep doing as we finish up the call. So our last question of the that was sent in was, the longer we are limited in what we can do, the more reactive Rocky gets when I take him on short outings away from the home. Can I do things daily to limit this reactivity, even though it isn't really apparent until there is a change in environment? Or do I just deal with it when it happens in the new environment? So, George, I'm going to let you interpret that question how you want to. I was a little bit unclear, but why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, I kind of puzzled with it too. So, there's an old joke that the fellow went to the doctor and he says, "Doc, it hurts when I do this." And the doctor told him, "Well, don't do that," and then charged him $50. Continually taking your dog out into a scenario where they're uncomfortable or reactive is less than desirable. They get to practice and therefore become habituated in that stuff, like in that reactivity. Continually taking him where he reacts is not the right way to go right now. Understand that when you're walking little Rocky, his feet are moving no matter where you are. I'm a big fan of having people go out to the middle of a field or a yard, a large yard or something, a park, and working out there in the field. And the reason I do this, and I hope you give me an extra minute on this so I can explain it, out in the middle of the field, I've eliminated birds and squirrels and rabbits and all that sort of natural distraction. I'm also in a position where I can see what's coming at me. So if Rocky's reacting to other dogs or people, you can see what's coming before it becomes an issue, and either retreat, or as he improves, start using that as a proofing exercise. Start moving towards that thing that bugs you or bugs Rocky. So I'm a big fan of training the dog first and doing it on a sidewalk where you have no means of escape and no means of avoiding the next dog around the corner or the next person or whatever is not a good training scenario. So as a dog trainer, I'm going to discourage that until the dog is ready to be proofed against that. And there's a whole lot more I could go into, but we limit it on time. So.
Yeah, so
Terrence?
I would just add into there just a little bit. It's one of my favorites, to be honest with you. The leash reactive dog, the dog that has no manners on the leash when he sees another dog. Like George said, you want to put your dog in a situation to win. The more he's in a situation to where he's reacting, like George was saying, it's called hardwired. It gets hardwired in their head, and that's the way they think life is. You want to change that mindset. So, and how you do it is work in a low distraction area or walk in a low distraction area. And I know it's going to take you out of your way, or you might have to go the other way, take another route that may add on a half a mile or so. However, the more you are in that less distracted area and you come across some mild distractions, you get the dogs focused on you, maybe even doing a turn or tell them to sit. Don't they look at you, you're crazy. You put them in that behavior. I'm going to give you a great example of how I used to do my dogs, because my dogs was least reactive as well. I would go to a dog park, but I would go about 50, 60 yards from the dog park. My dog sees all those dogs. And I would keep doing about turns and sit down, play, and slowly move closer and closer and closer until I got to the point where I was right up on the gate. My dog sees the other dogs on the other side, a bunch of dogs just running loose, having fun time. And I would just praise and play. And it took my dog's mind off of it. So in my dog's mind is thinking, when there's dogs present, I get to play. I'd rather play than be aggressive towards the dogs. Now, when I do get aggressive towards the dog, mommy or daddy doesn't like that, and bad things happen. I get my neck yanked a little bit, or I want to go this way, and she's going that way. But when I don't pay those dogs any attention, I get to play or treat, whichever one works for you. But work it from a distance first, then slowly work it in. And if you're walking, go the other direction or set yourself aside from it and try to put the dog into a sit. It is a common problem, but it can easily be attacked if you approach it in those manners in which George and I were mentioning. There's a whole bunch of other ways. There's no one way of solving any one problem. Coming into the center, once we open back up, we can diagnose it a lot better. But based off of, just seeing it from the surface, that's the way that I would approach it. Change the mindset, make it fun.
Excellent. And I got a follow-up comment from Sheila, who asked the question and said that he's fine in the neighborhood around all distractions now, and it's really just outside of the neighborhood that he reacts. And so, I'm ultimately going to kind of say similar to what both George and Terrence said, but you ultimately need to spend more time probably in the neighborhood, really, really successful before you start taking him outside of the neighborhood as much. But, it goes to, we want to get the dog to generalize the behavior. And so you need to have him consistently doing the behavior that you need him to do in the neighborhood before you start trying to take him outside of the neighborhood. You will ultimately need to practice with him walking in a lot of different environments. Again, it goes to, I mentioned, why dog trainers, dogs and police dogs, a lot of the time seem so well trained. It's partially because we train them in so many different environments, scenarios, and circumstances. You have not had that opportunity at this point. But that's ultimately, if you want to have that type of fluid behavior where he's focused on you, regardless of what's going on, regardless of where you're at, you're going to have to start getting him out and about more. And Terrence, what would you want to add to that?
I'm just going to say, I try not to put the police side of the training into it too much, but this is one of the things that we had to do with police dogs. They had to walk in neighborhoods, in bad neighborhoods, and they had to get used to it. Now, this is the time where you would kind of use reverse psychology, where you would go into that neighborhood, but as soon as you got into that neighborhood or that situation, as soon as you step into it, it's fun, it's play, it's play, it's play. And then you go back to maybe doing some obedience, then you kind of go back in. Again, everything is done in segments. But again, like Andrew said, take them out, take them somewhere else, get them used to all the environments that you can, so that can become hardwired. That way of thinking becomes hardwired that, this is not bad. Okay, there's another dog, there's another dog. This is not bad at all. So exposure, environmental exposure is your friend, but having fun with them. Don't get so tensed up, because a lot of what you feel goes down that leash, and that dog is sensing that.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. So we are kind of winding down here, and I'm just looking
Hey, Andrew,
to.
we had a question from Karen. She asked you, I asked it twice. So I think if we pick one, I'll just tell you that one and we can
Go
have
ahead.
Karen's answer it. She said her dog has started recently pooping in the crate just once a month, but it seems to be now consistent every once in a while. Doesn't think there's any health issues. So what's really going on that could cause that?
Well, you want me to answer?
Sure. Go ahead, George.
Oh, first of all, it doesn't sound very consistent to me if it's just once in a while. Sometimes dogs just don't feel well, or there's a diet problem, or a given day they get a little bug. But that's going to be random. So once a month to me, I'm considering that random. Now, if it was every time you put her in the crate, or every time you put her in the crate for 3 hours or something, then we got a behavioral issue. I would look at diet. I would look at a schedule. A good thing to do when you're trying to wrangle up that type of problem is keep a log. When the dog was out, when the dog emptied, when the dog didn't empty, when the dog emptied in the crate, what was going on, what time of day was it, etc., to help you, because it's like playing Sherlock Holmes with something like that, because you can't interview the dog. But once a month or so, I'm considering random, so it's hard to put a cause on that. I mean, they don't look at calendars last time I checked.
Yeah, I agree with George. I mean, George just took every word out of my mouth. George, come on, man. You're reading my mind.
That's why we work so well together.
That's right. Absolutely. So, but like, try to mark the dates down. Try to mark the dates down. Like George said, take a log. It's such a loaded question because it's only once a month. It's not really an issue. You just kind of got to figure out what's going on, and doing that log, like George was saying, and put the dates down and even the time. That's going to help you kind of narrow down the problem. The other thing is maybe change the crate that they're in. And I'm just saying totally change it, not once a month, but just totally change the crate that they're in.
Interesting. So I couldn't agree with you guys more. The idea of writing the dates down is something that we do a lot of at DogiZone, especially with our puppy training clients. And we actually have a template that we've built that is a log for you to be able to log your dog's intake and eliminations, if you will. If you just email info@dogizone.com and just put in the subject line, send me the housebreaking log, we will send that to you. I won't promise you it's anything too exciting, but it will just save you the step of creating something, mark it, log it. If we don't have data, then it is difficult to be able to really manage because we don't really know how serious the issue actually is. I really like the idea, Terrence, that you mentioned of changing out the crate. I wasn't even going to think of that, but it's a really good idea. And the reason why I say that is just I've seen dogs react so differently to different types of enclosures. And it's hard to know what the dog likes or doesn't like, what they've experienced or haven't experienced. And so I think that that's certainly worth a shot. If you've got a wire crate, you might consider switching to more of an airline style crate, which is more den-like versus open. So food for thought. That's great and wonderful questions from you all. And I know that there's 1,000 more questions that would love to be answered by our trainers. And so, of course, we'll be doing this again next week. Throw into the chat bar right now, what are you going to start doing, stop doing, or keep doing with your dog? So let's see what you guys got from the call that you are going to put into action this week with your dog. Just throw it in the chat bar. Keep teaching him Spanish. All right, bilingual dog. Go get him. What else do we have here? Start praising as they come to you. Very good. Awesome. Work some find it scent work. Excellent. Stop reinforcing bad behavior. Oops. Right side walking. Going to stop giving attention until he's polite. Yes. Awesome. Tad pushy with this pandemic. Me too. I've gotten a tad pushy with this pandemic also. I think we're all ready to get back to the real world. Awesome. Well, keep that stuff coming in here, but I encourage all of you to take that sheet of paper, put it up on your fridge, write it on your mirror with dry erase marker, whatever it is that you need to do to help you remember to do it, go ahead and make sure that happens. If you have additional questions, go ahead. You can always submit them again to our next call. Just so you all know, we usually pick about 10 questions. We don't always know how fast the questions are going to get answered. We will do our best to get as many questions in as we possibly can. Of course, if you would please send any feedback that you had on our call today, we'd love for you to send it. You can just email it to me directly, just andrew@DogiZone.com. Love to hear your feedback, good or bad, about how we can improve these calls. I know that a few of you want to be able to submit videos. So when we put out our next posting about this, we will mention how to do that. We'll likely just have you email those videos to us, info@DogiZone.com, but we will confirm that for you. If you found tonight beneficial, and only if you did, if you didn't, I don't want you to do this, but if you did, we'd love for you to go on social media and share our Facebook page, Instagram, any of that type of stuff. We are probably going to open this up for more people. And we'd love to, just have you guys support us in doing that. So if you have any other questions that are pressing, that you need an answer to right away, we obviously have the virtual lessons that we can do with you. We're offering 15% off any of you who have been on the Ask the Trainer calls. So yes, just by joining here, you'll get a little discount for those if you need that. Thank you all very much, and we hope that you have a better than great evening. Take care.